All right, this is the second lecture. All right. So before we start building models ourselves, I think it's worth taking a step back and looking at how time series forecasting has evolved over the years. Because honestly, the models we are going to implement later didn't just appear overnight. They are the result of decades of research. If you understand this evolution, you will also understand why people keep proposing new architectures. Let's start from the oldest approach. Originally, almost every forecasting problem relied on statistical models. Methods like AR, MA, and ARIMA assumed that future values could be explained by linear relationships in previous observations. These methods worked surprisingly well for relatively simple signals. They are mathematically elegant, computationally efficient, and in many engineering applications, they are still used today. But there was one major limitation. Real-world systems are rarely linear. Emotions, financial markets, weather systems, human behavior, they all contain nonlinear dynamics. Once the relations become nonlinear, classical statistical models begin to struggle. So researchers started asking, can we let the computer learn those nonlinear relationships directly from data? That's where neural networks entered the picture. Feedforward neural networks is the first neural networks. So people use fully connected neural networks. The idea was straightforward. Take several previous observations, flatten them into one long vector, feed them into a multi-layer perceptron, and predict the next value. This worked better than linear regression in many cases, but there was another problem. A fully connected network doesn't really understand time. To the network, every input is simply another number inside the vector. It has no concept of sequence or temporal order. So although it could learn nonlinear mappings, it couldn't naturally model temporal dependencies. So we move to the recurrent neural networks, RNN. And this limitation led to one of the biggest milestones in time series forecasting recurrent neural networks. The key idea behind an RNN is actually pretty intuitive. Instead of treating every observation dependently, the network keeps an internal memory. Every time a new observation arrives, the hidden state is updated. That hidden state carries information from previous time steps. So instead of forgetting the past, the model gradually built an internal representation of the sequence. This was a huge breakthrough because finally neural networks could process sequential data naturally. However, RNNs introduced another challenge. If the sequence becomes very long, information from the distant past gradually disappears. This is known as the vanishing gradient problem. In practice, the model tends to remember recent information, while older information fades away. To solve the problem, researchers developed LSTM, long-term or short-term memory. LSTM introduced several gates instead of blindly updating the hidden states. The model learns what information to remember, what information to forget, and what information should be passed to the future. This gating mechanism dramatically improved the long-term sequence modeling. Later, GRU simplified the LSTM architecture. It has fewer parameters, trains a little faster, while often achieving similar performance. So for many years, RNN, LSTM, and GRU became the standard solution for time series forecasting. But researchers noticed something interesting. RNNs process data sequentially. That means they can't fully exploit GPU parallel computation. If your sequence becomes very long, training also becomes slower. So people began asking another question: do we really need recurrence? Can convolution solve a sequence problem instead? And this idea eventually led to temporal convolutional networks, or TCN. TCN applies one-dimensional convolutions along the time axis, like in image CNNs. The convolution slides over time instead of space. What's really nice is that every time step can be processed in parallel, so training becomes much faster. TCN also introduced causal convolution. That simply means the model is only allowed to look into the past. Future information is never looked into the current prediction. Another important idea is dilation. Instead of using only neighboring samples, the convolution skips certain positions, allowing the perceptive field to grow rapidly. So even without recurrent, the model can capture long-range temporal dependencies. For many forecasting problems, TCN actually outperformed traditional RNN-based models. So, so they came another revolution, the transformer. Transformers were originally designed for natural language processing, but researchers quickly realized that they could also model time series. The biggest difference is attention. Instead of processing information one step at a time, every time step can directly attend to every other time step. In other words, the model learns which previous observations are important, rather than assuming nearby observations are always the most useful. This made transformers extremely powerful, especially for long sequences. But there is a trade-off. Self-attention requires comparing every time step with every other time step, so the computational cost grows quadratically with a sequence length. If your sequence doubles, the computation becomes roughly 4 times larger. So although transformers are very powerful, they can also become expensive for very long signals. So modern time series models, that's why the field didn't stop with transformers. Recently, many researchers have gone back to convolutional architectures, but these are not the old CNNs anymore. Modern architectures combine depthwise convolutions, residual connections, efficient normalization, channel mixing, and lightweight attention-like mechanisms. Examples include modern TCN, TimeNet, patch TST, and several foundation models designed specifically for time series forecasting. The goal is simple: keep the efficiency of convolution while approaching the representation power of transformers. So where does our course fit into this timeline? We are going to produce and compare several generations of these models. We'll start from relatively simple architectures like time CNN, then we'll move toward more advanced models including modern TCN and hybrid architectures such as CDCI, hybrid, and SRA deciders.